It's been almost a week since I saw this movie, and holy crap, the tides have turned. I was never one for reactionary uh, items, reactionary content, whatever you want to call it. We're here to do movies, we're here to talk about movies. I'm here to guide you on evaluating the movie, and in some cases, we push against narratives. Unfortunately, narratives they're just a part of the modern film going experience. Sure, I always hope for movies to be universally loved. It just makes a little bit of my job with this podcast a little bit easier. Brave New World, it literally is a Brave New World in just how we watch blockbuster movies together. You, me, and everyone else. So let's get into it.
On the set.
Camera speed,
Sound production, take one.
action!
Yeah, I was happy. My buddy Mark, if you guys aren't familiar with him, his last episode on this podcast, back when we still called it Dreamweavers, might have been a Marvel Cinematic Universe drinking tier, where we pretty much like ranked the movies, like the drinking order of the movies. And all of this is it was either going into Infinity War or going into Avengers Endgame. So I was grateful to see the movie with him, to get some food before, and yeah, just do some Philly walking around Chinatown. Here in Philly, we have one amazing theater in what's called the Fashion District, and it's an AMC. It's one of those theaters. There's nothing under a $20 ticket. I think some of the tickets go up to $28 depending on your type of screen, because they got all the different sounds. I think they even have one where like the seats like vibrate. This is also the home, and some of my I don't know, joking conversation about the modern film going experience is what at the time I was exaggerating. I would say that there's $50 popcorn buckets, because I used to buy those $24, $25 tin ones, with all the graphics, like really cool look. Some of them are metallic, they're reflective. I would just buy them because usually they're a few dollars more than the large popcorn, and you get a collectible bucket that you can reuse. And a lot of the times when we do movie nights here, everyone grabs their favorite popcorn bucket, and then we all just sit down and have fun. But this theater, this AMC, had a $50 Captain America Shield popcorn bucket, and my head spun when I saw it. I couldn't believe, and I'm seeing people running around the theater with it. Back in the day, we used to, Mark and I, we would spend a couple $100s just to go see one movie. We would have to go downtown, so right off the bat, it was like a $15 Uber. We would have to go all the way, technically South Philly, Columbus Boulevard. But we would eat before we went. We would go out drinking before we went to the movie. Then we would, drink on the way back home. And it would just be these trust me, tons of fun, but grueling nights. Him and I, we just basically had a adult evening, but it was also a weekday. He's got work the next day, I got work the next day. But it's always great to watch particular types of movies with friends and family that you associate those movies with. It just enhances the experience. Let's fast forward. We're at the end of the end credits. The incursion is teased. The leader is in jail. That's our villain. And he teases the incursion. And the incursion also was teased at the end of Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange 2. That's where we have Charlize Theron portraying Claire. I forget. I think it's Clary. But it's somewhat love interest, comic book wise, with Doctor Strange. But they go off to these incursions. So we got this brewing problem in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, just as a universal scope. It's been teased in a few other forms. Now, we all know how everything we learned in Deadpool Wolverine rolled into it. We still don't know how Loki Season 1, Loki Season 2 rolls into it. We keep hearing rumors that Kang the Conqueror is going to get recast. The Jonathan Major stuff is egregious. Marvel has to let this guy go. It should still be the Kang Dynasty. I get they pivoted with Doctor Doom. What Marvel did to Jonathan Majors, it's just egregious. They have to correct that. So, right, we all know if Kang's going to pop up somewhere. But the end of this movie leans towards this bigger picture. During the movie, they right off the bat, they're like, hey, Sam Wilson, we need you to form a new Avengers. So they get that out of the gate. And then we get this somewhat, and I know a lot of people missed what happened. General Ross now he's a superhero Hulk, elected as president. Also, kind of unbelievably elected as president, because he doesn't have a spouse. He's estranged from his daughter. Doesn't even have a dog. I don't know who would vote for this guy. The movie should have somewhat convinced the audience that this is which is why when you get a guy like Harrison Ford, you hope that's going to happen. And then therein lies one of the real problems with this movie. So, real quick, Bucky shows up in this movie. He's like running for senator or running for Congress. So now we have two major players in the Marvel Cinematic Universe getting into national politics on the highest level. None of that feels honest, truthful, and authentic. None of it quite fits. And they could do things with these characters that fit. I'm already on record of saying they should have went with Bucky with all of this. He was designed to inherit the shield. He just seems to make sense. Even him coming from the time of Steve Rogers, they're kind of duplicates of one another character-wise. They have more in common than they don't. But Sam Wilson, not much of a struggle. They keep giving him things to fight against, but as a character, not much of a struggle. So do we have a casting problem? I realized this when I was watching Harrison Ford. It's almost like this guy should not be in this movie. What what are we doing here? It's hard for me. I tried watching Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and I just couldn't do it. And that was before this movie. There's a side of me that wants to rebel against some of this stuff, because I view so much of it as elder abuse. I mean, we saw Bruce Willis basically get dementia like in real time. If you go through his chronological filmography, movie by movie, you will see Bruce Willis slip into dementia. We've seen, on the other hand, we've seen guys like Nicolas Cage resurrect his career because he can't stop making movies. Harrison Ford cannot stop making movies, and I believe it's just for like other reasons. And it's one of those things that needs to stop. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm looking at you. Some of it too is, like attach yourself to movies that matter. Attach yourself to movies of quality. Recently on this podcast, we did Truth, 2015 with Kate Blanchett. Robert Redford is in that movie. He plays Dan Rather, and it's a amazing performance by Robert Redford. But he's old. He comes off as a seasoned, aged film anchor, but he's playing Robert Redford. He is Robert Redford. There is nothing that they do to try and convince you he's Dan Rather, but he comes across so well on camera, just audibly, just like the sound of Robert Redford's voice. I don't know what it is. It just screams, "Trust me, I'm authoritative. I'm the guy you want in your corner." I never get any of that with Harrison Ford's General Ross. At the end of the movie, we have the hook that the leader has been slowly poisoning General Ross with this heart condition that he helped cure off screen. You know, we have a somewhat giant off screen story between the leader and General Ross, Harrison Ford's character, which is interesting. I think that's well written. They bake a lot of good stuff into the dough, but it's not there. And then we have other characters. There's a Secret Service agent that's friends with St. Wilson, poorly cast. Harrison Ford has his own Black Widow, Red Room assassin girl. She's poorly cast. St. Wilson as Captain America, poorly cast. I just do not buy Anthony Mackie in a way that he's able to lead men into the darkest corners, period. I just don't. I think St. Wilson as a character, I think Anthony Mackie, who portrays him, the character really thrives when you're third dude from the left. But that says something. But we see this with Anthony Mackie. We saw this in Pain and Gain, right? How come he wasn't in The Rock's role for Pain and Gain? Or Mark Wahlberg. You're third guy from the left. The Night Before with Seth Rogen and Jordan Gordon-Levitt, the third guy from the left. We'll be doing a movie that I think he's fantastic in, that he does star in, called Synchronic. He's got an upcoming movie, I believe, on HBO Max called Elevation that looks really good. So he's in some of these like smaller science fiction movies, but then he's also in this. Did his handlers, did the people who guide his career with him, did they miscalculate some of this? Because I get that becoming Captain America and getting your own movie it's such a big deal, right? I mean, we only have a handful of actors that portrayed Captain America on the big screen, even on the little screen, if you want to deal with some of the TV. Well, we'll be doing the 1970 TV show, TV special, by the way. There was 2 live action movies. We'll be doing the first one for that series. But when it comes to Steve Rogers, he's really up. He's measured against Chris Evans, and Chris Evans, for some reason, comes off perfect when the camera rolls as Steve Rogers. When he was cast as Steve Rogers, people kind of forget there wasn't a lot of fanfare. There was blowback, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe had this run where they just kept hitting really good casting, people that were photogenic, people that the character ended up well on screen. And you kind of get the idea that they can't miss because they had so many hits. And then when they start to slip, it's hard to dissect what that formula is, even if there was one. At this point, we do want to say a lot of the MCU could have been luck. And they had a really long lucky streak. Very similar to Pixar, when people thought that Pixar could not make a bad movie. And then look what happened. But we have them. So this other thing happens with this movie. I feel that this movie has a plot. It has a through line. It's well designed. There's a lot of elements. There's a lot of new characters. I think even Carlos Esposito as Sidewinder, miscast. I also view that as a completely wasted character. But we do have this plot. It's not so much of a plot of world domination, by the way. It's really a plot of the leader getting back at his captor. It's a cool position. But overall, this movie it didn't quite land. So I finished the movie with Mark, and I should say, I'm like, one of my gauges early on is, do I feel a desire to watch this movie like back to back? Like, do I want to watch it when I get home? And the answer for Captain America Brave New World is no. So we get this push online. All the detractors, I was right, like we were right, we were right. The detractors were right with this movie, that it just seemed to be problematic for all kinds of reasons. Some good, some bad. But then we got this second wave as the weekend rolled out. A lot of people seemed they like Anthony Mackie. They like him as Captain America. They want to see more of him as Cap. And we didn't quite see that. We didn't see that with a lot of these other MCU movies that got trounced, that got trampled on. We didn't see it with the Marvels. We didn't see it with the Eternals. We didn't see it with Quantumania. There was no return to Quantumania, and I feel a lot of people hoped there would be, because that movie also has elements. We didn't get with Thor, Love and Thunder, none of it. But this movie, the online world rallied around this movie. So now in my Facebook and my Twitter feed, I should see people posting how much they enjoyed this movie. Everyone seems to post with the caveat, it's not perfect, but it's very enjoyable, which is kind of code for a movie you could skip. But I'm in the ground, like I'm dying on the hill at this point, that I don't feel that this movie's rewatchable. I don't think this movie has elements to study. The plot is there, but we need the cinematic experience to kind of fire and click on all cylinders. So when these things aren't present, we have to have a discussion. It's a hard one sometimes. The box office seems to be good. It didn't do 200 million. 200 million really would have been earth-shattering. 150 would have been earth-shattering. This movie tracked low the entire time compared to other MCU movies, but it opened larger than what a lot of detractors were reporting. So we get like $100 million opening. That's really good for the numbers. Disney released the budget too, which they really don't focus on a lot, but there was so much bad information about the budget for this movie. Disney did a good PR run with this film. I believe we're in a profitable zone on this movie already. I think we're plus 20 million going into the second weekend. Now it'll fall off, but let's say it falls off by 50 and we make 50 million. So then it's like plus 70 million. That's looking pretty good. That's looking a lot better than other recent MCU movies outside Deadpool, Wolverine. Will I put this movie back on? Will I watch it again if it's on Disney Plus? Potentially, yeah. I may just put it on and fast forward for a little bit and just kind of watch the movie that way from random points. I like to recreate how I think I absorbed movies when I was younger, where you would just turn on Cinemax or HBO or Showtime and be forced to catch a movie in the middle, because that's how, unless you had the VHS or the DVD, you caught things in the middle all the time. I think it's a good way to gauge, test, and re-experience movies that you're already familiar with. So, AKAPADers, those are some of my initial thoughts for Captain America Brave New World. I think the conversation around this movie is still evolving. I even, with this episode, feel like I'm coming in early. I'm grateful we had a little bit of a gap between me seeing it, because I would have had to do another episode to follow up the perception of this movie and how it rapidly turned a corner. But we will see. But as of right now, it looks like Disney maneuvered their way throughout this entire movie, throughout the entire production, and you do have to give Marvel Studios credit for that.
Okay, that's a wrap.